Well, good morning. This
Good
is,
morning.
I'm Emily Thoreau-Threat from Maui, Hawaii, and I'm here this morning with David Dowdy, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation. I am the author of Loving and Living Your Way Through Grief, and David actually was explaining to me that he's a fan, so that's really great. David, could you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yes, my name is David Dowdy. I'm here in Bakersfield, California. I like to call it the thriving metropolis of Bakersfield, of course. And yeah, I have a 501c3 nonprofit called Healing Hands, Healing Hearts. And we work with the critically, chronically, and terminally ill, bringing them comfort, care, and connection. Kind of sidestepping and working alongside with Western medicine. Only we work through touch, through compassion, through being able to connect physically, emotionally, spiritually with somebody who is, suffering physically, whether it's, like I say, critically, chronically, terminally. Um, and so we have our therapists that go out and make visits, in person, whether the person's at home or in a convalescent care facility or a hospital or under hospice care. Um, it doesn't really matter. We like to make the visit to them. Um, so yeah, that's kind of it in a little nutshell.
I think that's wonderful. I know that when I've dealt with people who are in those situations that you described, that one of the biggest thing that they miss out on is touch. You
Yes,
know, if people
exactly.
are hesitate to touch, they don't want to hurt them, they don't want to invade their space.
They don't know
They
how.
no, and they make up all kinds of things,
Right.
reasons or excuses not to do it. So, how does this work for you? Have you discovered that too, that people
Oh
are
my
are grateful
goodness.
for the touch?
My goodness. That's from day one. And it was funny because when I was taking the class, um, I I was thinking to myself, how is it going to be received? And it just took off like fire. When I came back, because I took the classes up in the Sacramento area, because there were no schools down here that taught any such things, and I brought it back to Bakersfield, and it actually took a year before
Mm,
I could connect with a hospice that would embrace it. And yeah, because I was approaching the hospices that were more business oriented. And until
mm,
I crossed paths with Hoffman Hospice, which was at the time really the only nonprofit hospice, yeah, they jumped at it. And it brings, it's almost hard to explain. When I show up to make a visit, there's some hesitation in the household usually because they're not sure. Usually it's explained to them, someone's coming to give Mary a massage. That's usually how it's expressed. So they're thinking, okay, somebody's going to come in here, strip them down and rub oil on their body, and my gosh, this is not going to go well, And but when I show up, and I usually have my rolling stool and a little duffel bag, and I set up a little CD player because I'm old fashioned, of course. I don't use my phone. and uh, and I sidle up to the person wherever they are on my rolling stool. They don't need to undress. There's no oils, creams used. They can even stay under the covers if they need to. Uh, and the work is done on them from head to toe. There's a very light compression work. It's very rhythmical, it's very slow. Match it to the person's breathing typically, as far as the movement goes, so that their body really absorbs your movement, your touch, to their bodily natural movement. And it brings such a peace to a body that has been in turmoil and has been attached to a brain that's been telling them, I'm dying, or I'm in permanent pain, or I can't sleep for more than an hour. And this is probably, I got to say, this is about the best sleeping pill that exists. The touch therapy that we teach. But yeah, so I might have been rambling there, but
No,
we
perfect.
we find we work on. There's no age limit on this. Matter of fact, I have a wonderful story. It's probably might be too long to go into, but I worked on a little boy. I don't know if you know what Menkes syndrome is.
I
It's
don't know that one.
yeah, it's a condition where the the protective sheath around your nerves, you're either born without it or it
Mm.
disintegrates. And so
Oh,
you become this raw nerve from head to toe. And usually people born with it, the baby doesn't usually live too long. And this little boy was 9 months old, had actually lived quite a while. And I was able to go in and work with this child, which usually you can't touch them because it's like touching an open nerve. But what I did with my hands on in the child was laying in their grandma's lap, and she had the fear of God in her eyes, looking at me like, "You're gonna, what are you gonna do?" Oh my goodness, it was one of the biggest joys I had when I put that little boy to sleep,
mm.
and he slept for hours, not minutes, but hours. And I got phone calls later from the hospice and from the mother. They're like, "What did you do? How did you do this?" And so I went back out and I was teaching the grandmother and teaching the mother, how touch can be so non-invasive. And yeah, so
Oh, that's wonderful. I know I did for a while. I was doing some consulting for a long-term care facility, and I had told a friend of mine who was a massage therapist about what I was doing, and he said, "Oh, we should do massage there." And I said, "Well, I don't know how well they'll receive it, but
yeah.
I'll pitch it." So I talked to the owner of the facility, or the administrator for the facility, and she was all about doing whatever could make her people feel better.
Right.
And so we started sending out letters to whoever it was that was responsible for the bills for the people that were in there, because most of the people weren't paying their own bills at that time. And we asking for permission to work with them with massage therapy. And not very many responded,
Right.
but the ones who did weren't necessarily that in touch with their resident who was there,
Yeah.
but the residents responded wonderfully. So
Ah.
we decided to do this in-service program with all of the staff that interacted with the residents to teach them how to do hand massage and
Very
foot
good.
massage. And so they started doing it, and they were thrilled with the results, because they said the people who'd been combative and who didn't
Right.
want to be touched and all that, once they started doing that, they'd start just a little bit at a time, and they started asking for more, and they calmed down and they were grateful, and they were so much happier that somebody was actually touching them in a kind and caring way, and it was very comforting to them.
Exactly. And that's something that we've run into numerous times. You'll have, especially when I work in convalescent care, because
Hmm.
you'll have people who will have usually a parent, put into a convalescent hospital because they don't have the manpower or the desire sometimes to be a caregiver at home. And so they take their loved one and put them in this lonely room, and the person will be laying in a hospital bed, and many times they're not even ambulatory. They have to wait for help to even get up to go use a restroom. And so I'll show up, and that person lying in the hospital bed there just gives you this sideways glance like, "Who are you? What?" I'm telling you what, I have seen so much life breathe back into a person just for the fact that I'm there with I have no ulterior motive. I'm there for no other reason than to be there with them and for them. And when they realize that I'm not there to change their sheets or to, apply a medication I am just there for their relaxation, their connection. If they don't want me, they can just say, I'm done, please go away, and I'll do exactly as they wish. It's probably the one thing that they have control of, because that's one of the biggest problems is they start losing control of their life. They can't eat on their own at their own time. They can't bathe on their own at their own time. They have people changing their diapers. They have people changing their beds. They have people in and out of the room all the time, and usually don't even stop to make eye contact. It's like a passing by. Hi, Mrs. Jones. How are you doing, Mrs. Jones? And don't, it's just fluff. And so they start becoming invisible. They start drawing in and building this veil around them that says, I'm done with the outside world because they're done with me. I'm just an object now. I'm not even a human being. Family members tend to not be in touch with them because they figure they're being cared for, and so you become almost instant family after about this, usually by the second visit. When you walk in the room, their eyes light up, and it's just you feel like you're that breath of fresh air for them, and you get to help them escape for that period of time. And in a way, you start teaching them how to meditate, which is wonderful.
Oh yeah, that's so important. I know that I try when I meet someone who's grieving to back when we could meet in person, always touch, reach out and put my hand on their shoulder or sit
Yes.
and hold their hand. Because with grief, especially if it's somebody, a life partner or a child, anybody that you've been living to or have been physically close to, when that physical closeness is no longer there, that's one of the things that the people miss the most.
It is.
And you don't take the place of whoever is gone, but it certainly is comforting to be touched, to be held, however you can do that. I think it's just really important. And it's important too for people who are in grief to practice self-care. And one thing that I think is really good is touching yourself. I've got some lovely body cream that Ron got for me because he just loved the fragrance of it. And so sometimes I will just sit and pay attention to it. I'll sit in a position where I can luxuriate in rubbing that cream on my arms and my legs and taking my time with it. And it kind of increases circulation, just makes me feel more comfortable. And I think that people are kind of hesitant to do that kind of self-care,
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of like some of the energy modalities. I am a Reiki practitioner, and there is wonderful teachings on doing self Reiki. And so, you work with yourself, and you have your hand on your chakras, and you work through areas, and you get back in touch with yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, and you balance, and you are touching yourself. And so you're right, exactly. We forget, hey, I'm here too, hello.
Yeah. Yeah, we want something to come to us when we actually can do something for ourselves.
Right. And that's something else that we teach in the classes that we teach with the touch therapy, that is very important if you're going to be a therapist using touch, that you do reach out. And there's so many different energy work modalities out there that you find something where you can connect with somebody without actually physically touching them. And yet to them, it feels like you are hands-on. Because I've had a couple of instances where the person's physical body has been in such a state where hands-on wouldn't have worked. Skin conditions that were hard and crusty and cracked and oozing, and so I'm not going to go putting my hands on there and disrupting anything and creating more of a problem. But I was able to get close enough where they laid there and just expressed afterward, my gosh, how were you able to put your hands on me? That felt so good, and you don't say anything, and
Yeah.
just but
Yeah.
but yeah, and so and another thing is when I do go to work on somebody and they have family members as caregivers, I always invite the family members to join me, to sit on the other side of the bed. I say, watch what I'm doing. And if you like, join me and just mimic what I'm doing, because when I'm not here, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they wake up and they're just totally uncomfortable and they can't get back to sleep, you can do this. You can just come in here with hands on and gently, even if you only work on an arm, it doesn't matter. I can almost guarantee you that you're going to put them back to sleep. And I've had wonderful responses to this. Family members that will call me or tell me just the next visit, "Oh, Dave, I'm so glad you showed me," because,
It is just wonderful. I know in the case I was thinking when you were talking about is something to do when you can't physically touch is sound therapy.
Oh, very
And
much.
oh, I've had just wonderful experiences myself with that. And
Hmm.
I really like it. Ron actually introduced it to me because he had some um, the singing bowls.
Right.
And if I didn't feel great, he'd just sit next to me and play it for a while, and you just kind of relax and feel better. And so when you go to a real sound therapy where there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, it's an incredible experience.
Yes, it is.
So
And
I
that's what
really,
we've, I know with Hoffman Hospice is one of the hospices that I've worked with here, and they have had people go in and bring, a cello and, sit
oh,
down and just play. And there's so much of a difference between somebody being there in person rather than just turning on music on a
mhm.
machine. And yes, it's remarkable how just simple sound can be so relaxing, and also done correctly and by someone who really knows what they're doing. Aromatherapy
Oh
can,
yeah.
yeah, play a huge role, but that's one of those, especially with hospice, you have to be real careful and know what you're doing, because you can create just as much turmoil as you can relaxation if you don't know what you're doing. Just because it smells good
That's
to you
right.
doesn't mean it's something you want to
It's,
saturate a room with.
they can have a terrible memory for somebody else. So
Right.
I know when Ron was on hospice, we had a dear friend who was a hospice worker, but she wasn't the hospice worker for him. She just was a friend, and she would do things. He was only on hospice for a week, but she would do the coolest thing. She had somebody who played the like the Native American flute,
Right.
who would come over and play that, and that was just beautiful. And Ron liked it so much that I had some recordings of that, so I would play that for him too. And his daughter was here, and he also liked jazz, so I'd play jazz for
Ah,
him because I knew that really appealed to him, knew the ones in particular he liked. It is his daughter was here, and she had been growing up very involved in hip hop dance, and Ron just loved to watch her dance and listen to the music that they did. And I had one of the flute things playing one day, and she came in and she goes, "Let's change the station." And she put on some of the music that she danced to, and he just was excited to have this. And so everybody was coming in and dancing in there with him, and the energy of everybody around him being happy and laughing and dancing, and that was really cheered him up. It was
right.
a great thing to do. And then my friend, the hospice friend, Robin, she's a fantastic person, had somebody come over and sing to him.
Hmm.
And the singing was just so wonderful.
It is.
It's different hearing it in person than hearing a recording of it.
Yeah, we had a symposium up in Sacramento, and it was made up of a myriad of different hospices and caregiving services and organizations. It was It was incredible. And one of them was a group that would get together. I think it was about 6 people, and they would go make visits, and they would sing, and it was just, oh, it was just so beautiful. And
Mm.
they would surround the bed and just sing these wonderful songs. And another is pet therapy.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
one that they do here also with Hoffman. They use dogs, and it has been phenomenal, because there's some people that don't don't really care to be with other people,
Hmm.
and they don't feel like talking to other people. They don't feel like answering questions. They don't feel like being, having somebody stand there and feel sorry for them, you know. But a dog shows up,
Oh,
this
yeah.
non-judgmental being, and all the life that just clicks on. And so it's been a beautiful, beautiful therapy that they've done here.
Yeah,
And so,
I love that. We do a thing here at my house every week on Fridays between 5 and 6. Anybody who has things from their garden that they can share come over, and we exchange food. Because
nice.
when I first moved in, I had all this food and I didn't know anybody, and didn't know what
It's
to
like,
do with all
oh, what
this
am I gonna
stuff.
do?
Because I didn't realize I had as much growing on my property, but I have tons of lilikoi, tons of papaya, and you can only eat
Wow.
so much of that, and you can't really freeze
Yeah,
it.
right.
So we started that. It's been 5.5 years, and the people are still together. We stopped advertising it during the pandemic, but the ones of us who have come all along will come with our masks, and it's outside and we're socially distanced, and so we can still do it. And one of the couples that have been coming from the beginning have a therapy dog that they take up to Kula Hospital every week. And
Oh,
that dog is the sweetest dog. They always bring her with them to here. And
mm.
then her husband got terminally ill, and
Oh, wow.
he died. It's been not quite a year now, but the dog provided so much comfort to him and to them together when they were going through all that. It just was just such a sweet, compassionate dog, and come up and put his head in your lap, or her head in your lap, or she's just a beautiful, gentle dog, and it just feels good to be around her. So there's animals that have that kind of energy that
Oh,
it's
right.
really
Sure,
neat.
sure. Yeah, that's something that I was so pleased when it came into being here, and became, I mean, it's at the forefront of their one of their care offerings. And I think they are the only organization here locally that does it.
Mm,
And as you know, Bakersfield and Kern County is a pretty big place.
yeah.
And so I would sure like to see that catch on even more.
That
Um,
would be wonderful. I know that I don't know what they had to do to become a therapy dog, but I know sometimes
there's training.
when they come, she has her identification badge on her little harness that she wears.
Yeah,
That says I am a therapy dog, and
right. No, they do have to go through training and have to be certified and such, and it's pretty thorough. I know that the people that have the therapy dogs are very proud, because I mean of what they had to go through to get it. And yeah, and so like I say, it's been very interesting calling, I have to say. You know,
yeah.
I sit back still, and I'm amazed at how I was drawn to this. I mean, I was an engineering detail designer for 20, 25 years, and the thought of uh, now where I'm at, I could have never imagined it. It seems like it's a whole life away, like it never, almost like it never was me, and that I've always done this for some reason. Um,
How did the
but
calling come to you? How did you?
it was strange. It was getting to a point around here where the economy, as you know, Kern County can be kind of a roller coaster ride, especially when you're dealing with steel, because that's where I was involved in, was the steel industry, and it's tied to the oil industry. And so when one does bad, the other does. And so I had just been laid off from a position, and I'm sitting there at home thinking, what do I want to do? I'm just getting burnt out on this. And so, my wife came in and she says, honey, you have always done, there's something you've always done. It's funny, I'd always done massage as a hobby since I was a kid. I mean, my dad was a fireman. He would come home with, sore legs and a bad back and all this, lay on the floor. And here I am, 5, 6 years old. I'm in there beating him up and walking on him, whatever it took to get the big old bear to start snoring. And it became kind of a thing. We go to family gatherings and people say, oh, Dave's here. Uncle Mike's neck hurts. And, I'd go around and be a little Mr. Massage guy, right? And it was kind of a joke. But as I got older, and I had kids of my own and they were in sports, I would get books and I would look online and I would find out how I could help them. And so it became, like I said, it became a hobby. And I would do massages on friends, just say, hey, I need to practice something. So that's what my wife told me. She says, honey, now, you've always done massage. Why don't you just scrap this and just change gears and go become a massage therapist? And I looked at her like, are you serious? She says, very. So I did. I just totally changed gears and jumped in feet first and became a massage therapist. Well, in Bakersfield, there's not much offering down here as far as continuing education goes. And I wasn't interested in being your typical salon monkey, the people come in and I just rub oil on them and, make them feel better type of thing. I wanted healing to be involved. And so I went online and I was looking for a school, and there was one called the Healing Arts Institute up in Citrus Heights up near Sacramento. And so I was looking through the classes and there it was, touch therapy for the terminally ill. And that just jumped out at me, and I read the syllabus on it, and it was like this light went on, and I just got those shivers from head to toe, that vibration. And I called my wife in and I said, you got to read this. We read it together, and I said, that's me. That's what I want to do. So I went up, took the classes, came back to Bakersfield, and that's when I was trying to find a hospice that wanted, would let me do this for free. I just wanted to volunteer. And finally with Hoffman, they just fell over backwards for it. And my very first visit, do you mind if I tell a little story?
No, please.
Oh, so I'm sitting there at home and I get the phone call from the volunteer coordinator. And she says, Dave, are you ready? I said, we got your first visit. And I said, okay, and I'm nervous as can be. And they said, yeah, she's an older lady. She's in her 70s, going in almost 80. She has a heart condition that is inoperable, and they give her, usually with hospice, it's about 6 months. And I said, okay. So I go up there and I've got my rolling stool positioned on my duffel bag, and I knock on that front door, and they open the door. Actually, a person opened the door, and he has a camera around his neck, and he's wearing a Hoffman badge. And I'm like, okay. And he says, hi, yeah, Dave. Oh, great. Come on in. And I go in, and so there's Mary. They have her in a hospital bed in the middle of the living room, which is great. But there's 2 other Hoffman nurses. There's probably 5 or 6 family members kind of milling around in the background. And that was actually, that was the chaplain, was the guy with the camera, and he did their photography too. He says, yes, everyone is so excited. They've all heard about what you're going to be able to come here and do. And I'm just like a deer in the headlights, like, okay, this is my very first visit.
Oh, wow.
I'm on stage, here in the middle of the living room. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is crazy. So I was able to, kind of shut that down and separate myself from all the craziness. And of course he says, "You don't mind how to take pictures, do you?" Okay, sure. And so, sweet Mary, her name was Teresa, but she went by Mary. And she's lying there in the hospital bed, and she's looking at me like, "What are you going to do?" you know. And I pull up beside her and I explain to her how this is very non-invasive, and so we get to talking a little bit, and she tells me, she says, my left arm hurts me the most. And she says it, and as I started working on her, she explained to me how she missed playing her cello.
Oh,
and 'cause she couldn't even move her left arm enough to even hold it anymore. And it's been months since she's been able to even touch it. And so I'm just say working with her, doing the touch therapy, the light compression work, and I really just channeled all I could on that left side. I was my focus. I just tried to become that left arm and see if there was anything that I could channel through to help. And I moved along, going to the other side, her right arm, and her started getting down to her legs. And then she stopped me and she says, "Stop." She says, and I thought, "Oh no, what have I done?" Because she had this almost urgent sound in her voice. And I said, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" She goes, "Oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine." Um, she goes, I want to sit up." Okay. So I had one of the nurses come over and sat her up on the side of her bed. And then she called to one of her sons. She goes, "Bring me my cello. It's in my bedroom. It's in the closet. Bring me my cello." And everyone's kind of peeking around the corner at her like, "What is going on here?" And I'm just sitting back thinking, this is crazy. So this one of the sons brings in the cello, and the bow has it's starting to fray. You can tell it's older, and she says, "Okay, sit me up where I can hold that." And the whole time she keeps moving that left arm. She goes, "I feel no pain at all in my left arm."
mm,
And she goes, "I'm going to play my cello." They sit her on a porta potty. She's still wearing a diaper. They lay blankets and stuff over her legs. Everyone has come into that room, and it's like this silence that, you could hear a pin drop situation. She sits down, holds onto that cello like a long lost lover, grabs that bow, drags that bow across those strings, and her left arm just starts moving up and down the frets, and she's just drawn. She made love to that cello for 3 consecutive songs, and oh my God, my eyes. Um, it was incredible. She was exhausted. That's the only reason she stopped, and she looked at me. She just thanked me. She says, "Thank you so much. This is all I wanted." She goes, "The last thing I wanted to be able to do was play my cello again." Well, got her back in bed, finished the session. I came back every week, and I worked on her for about 4 or 5 months until she passed. But she was so happy. Every time I would come in, she would replay it in her head and thank me. She goes, "Oh, she goes, I can hear it every night now." And they had one of the pictures they took was her playing the cello, and it was a wonderful picture. And they ended up blowing that up. It's in a huge picture at the lobby when you go into the hospice front offices. And so every time I visit, I see my sweet Mary up there. And that being my very first client told me, "Dave, you have made you are following your path." And I have just so many stories. Almost every visit I've made brings forth something for me or for them. And it reminds me, this is why I'm doing this. And this needs to be done more by more people. And that's why I love teaching classes.
got to me.
I know every time I recall it,
Yeah.
I tell that story to all my students when I'm teaching the classes, and my eyes water, and just in joyful remembrance of my sweet Mary every time. that look on her face. Oh gosh.
Wow. It's it's so wonderful that you could listen to that call and know this was what you were supposed to do, and that you're really seriously acting on it and helping so many people in such a wonderful way. I really admire you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. My life has been spared a few times. I survived a brain aneurysm, and I survived a birth defect in my heart, which was unknown. I mean, I went through the military. I was in the Army. I was frontline infantry, no issues. But all of a sudden, and it was when I started volunteering for hospice, went in for a physical, and the doctor listened to my heart and went, something sounds funny. They did further tests, and they said, wow, you got a deformed aortic valve, and it's allowing too much oxygen in there, and it's calcifying, and it's going
Oh,
to stop working. And I thought, I've got no symptoms.
wow.
And they said, well, that happens sometimes, and all of a sudden you'll just have a major cardiac arrest. So they went in and took out that valve and put in a mechanical valve. And I mean, it was like plug and play. I just,
Wow.
and so things like that have happened to me where, like the aneurysm, I shouldn't have survived that. And if I did, I should have had a lot of residual effects. Nothing. And I just, it's kind of that spanking that we need sometimes to realize, you know what, there's a reason that I'm being kept around, and I'm going to put it to use, because I shouldn't be here. So in that case, I'm going to dedicate my life to do something productive, helpful, on a level that doesn't have to do with money, because that's something that you definitely have to say goodbye to when you do a lot of this work, is you don't plan on being rich.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this has just been a wonderful conversation, and I'm really happy to share it with whoever I can, because
Sure.
this is so important for people to know about it. It's one of those things that I think people don't have a reason to know that it exists, and
Right.
so when the time comes up that they could use it, they wouldn't think about it. So if you can plant seeds on the way, that if something comes up, they go, oh, let's try this, I think it'll
Right.
work.
And it ties in so wonderfully through the work you're doing, the book you wrote. Oh my God, especially you use that word grief. It's at so many different levels, and it's defined in so many different ways for everybody. And this work ties in so well in helping people embrace their own grief and understand how they can digest it and move through it, and through compassionate touch. It's just the human touch. It's got, we have the ability.
Yes. And we should use it.
Yes, we should. But this has been marvelous. I really appreciate you taking the time and connecting. I love how we've connected after all these
Yes.
years, to
Yeah.
circle back around, and our paths have crossed again in a beautiful way.
Yes, I'm very grateful. It's wonderful. Well, I just can't thank you enough for being here, and we will get this word out, because it's so important.
Fantastic. And we'll stay in touch, and we'll keep supporting each other along the way.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, love and blessings, my sweet friend.
Oh,
You take care.
aloha.
Aloha. Bye-bye.